At the same time that the Southern Poverty Law Center says the hate crimes are going up, the FBI says no, they're actually decreasing.
Mm-hmm.
And who do you think most of the hate crimes are against? Muslims? No. They're against Jews. You'll never see anything on the part of the Southern Poverty Law Center that is supportive of the Jews or Israel. In fact, it's just the opposite. We did an entire study at Family Research Council on anti-Semitism by the Southern Poverty Law Center, and we show you how they support Students for Justice in Palestine on college campuses and all, which is a very anti-Semitic organization.
Mm-hmm.
They support them, and then they turn around and criticize Christian organizations that support Israel or some Jewish organizations. Now that said, it's also, I think, very important for us to understand that it's not only this anti-Semitism that you see in this organization, and don't give me the stuff that, Dees is Jewish or Cohen is Jewish. There are lots of anti-Semitic Jews in America, and this organization was headed by a couple of them from what we see of their actions and their words. But that said, you know who they don't list on their hate map? They don't list any of these groups that call for the killing of police. They don't list Antifa.
Mm-hmm.
Huh? They don't list Black Lives Matter. Now let me see. Black Lives Matters. What do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now. That was Black Lives Matter. But they're not listed. They're advocating the killing of police. How about Antifa? Same thing. They're advocating violent revolution. They're not listed on that hate map. So the question is why? And the answer is because they're in the same camp as the Southern Poverty Law Center. That's what Southern Poverty Law Center is focused on now, is pushing the agenda of these anti-Semitic organizations that are also revolutionary, like Antifa, in terms of violent overthrow, because we have actually a conservative president that is the most pro-life president we've ever had, and it is supporting religious liberty at a level that no previous president has, and therefore they have come out against those groups, but said absolutely nothing about these groups that are threatening not only law enforcement, but threatening conservative groups like us.
When the SPLC is actually sending information to Antifa, they're working through, and there was this woman who bragged about it, who I reference in the book, who's saying, look, I work closely with anti-fascist groups, and I work closely with the Southern Poverty Law Center. I send them information. And up in Canada, there's a Southern Poverty Law Center analog that actually got funding from the Southern Poverty Law Center, the Canadian Anti-Hate Network. They have worked directly with Antifa in Canada. So the SPLC seems to be a little bit smarter than that here in the States, but it's very revealing up there. And you talk about the anti-Semitism angle. I remember last year the Southern Poverty Law Center had a document warning against Holocaust denial, which, it's a good thing. We need to warn against it. They mentioned Muslims twice and Jews only once, and they said that Holocaust denial might threaten Muslims, totally overlooking the fact that the number one place for Holocaust denial is the Middle East. It's a tragic fact, and I think a lot of American Muslims, I have M. Zudi Jasser referenced in the book, Majid Nawaz. They're great Muslim reformers who stand against all the problems that Islam has across the world.
Right, and of course, Nawaz is the very individual that won that suit against the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Well, they settled out of court. They never went to trial with it, but it was very clear that this was, in fact, clear discrimination. And he won in out-of-court settlement.
Right, and that gets to sort of the interesting thing about the Southern Poverty Law Center and the way they treat their list. You mentioned, testifying before Congress saying that this is statistical evidence and so on. And then, of course, when the lawsuits come about, and you mentioned a number of lawsuits in the book, when the lawsuits come about, they go back and say, well, what defines a hate group? Nobody really knows. It's just sort of an opinion, and opinions are not covered by libel and slander laws, and therefore you can't sue us. And so they definitely sort of have this game where they get it both ways. And it's sort of fortunate, I think, that we're starting to see us turn the corner on some groups calling them out on that and saying, well, you're telling people that this is a factual list and that your designation of somebody as a hate group is a fact. Well, then you're liable for these things. And I think that's very positive.